This is Euronews Tonight. Here are your top stories. Russia promises to scale down operations in Kyiv and northern Ukraine at the latest round of peace talks in a first glimmer of hope for a reduction of violence. In Mykolaiv, a Russian strike batters a government building as people head to work, killing civilians and leaving others trapped under the rubble.
Here in the Cube, we take a look at reports of war crimes committed by Ukrainian soldiers on Russian prisoners.
And police in the UK hand out around 20 fines in relation to parties held at the Prime Minister's residence and government offices while the country was in lockdown. I'm Helena Humphrey. Good to have you with us. Turkey says that significant progress has been made between Ukraine and Russia following a further round of peace talks in Istanbul. Previous negotiations between the two sides failed to make any breakthrough, with the war now into its second month. But Moscow has made what appears to be its first major concession by announcing a reduction of military activity around Kyiv. The Russian delegation says the move is in response to Ukraine taking positive steps towards a non-aligned status.
Taking into account the principles discussed during today's meeting, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation decided to cut back military activity in the direction of Kyiv and Chernihiv to increase mutual trust and create the necessary conditions for further negotiations and achieving the ultimate goal of agreeing and signing the above agreement.
Well, the Ukrainian delegation says that a draft agreement has been negotiated that would see Kyiv's security guaranteed by neighbouring countries.
This would-be agreement states that if Ukraine is a target of any military aggression or any attack, we will be entitled to hold consultations within 3 days. If consultation fails to bring about the diplomatic resolution of the issue, the guarantor countries should provide us with military assistance, weapons, and we do not rule out the possibility to closing the sky over Ukraine.
Well, monitoring those peace talks in Turkey as well as the situation on the ground in Ukraine is our correspondent, Sasha Vakulina. Sasha, to be frank, I guess to start off with, I think it's fair to say over the past few weeks, peace talks have yielded, well, not much progress. Is that changing now?
Absolutely. The expectations were almost at zero today as well, right? Nobody expected a ceasefire or any kind of peace agreement. It is fair to say that this is the most significant diplomatic moment since the beginning of the invasion in terms of the two sides talking and negotiating. Now, Russia said that now they will drastically reduce combat operations around Kyiv and Chernihiv, as you said. This is interesting because over the past couple of days, we have seen Russian troops there in the area, in the northern part of Ukraine, not being able to gain more territories there. There's been also some heavy fighting happening, and this is where Ukrainian troops also started their counteroffensive. These are the northern northwest areas from Kyiv. Yet to see what's going to happen from the east of Kyiv and also the southern part of Kyiv from that direction. Chernihiv, of course, is another very complicated situation. There's still around there are thousands and thousands of people who are still there. It's over the 100,000 people who are still there. They're trapped, and this is the situation that is rather close to the one in Mariupol of humanitarian catastrophe. People who do not have electricity, they don't have food, they don't have water, and the humanitarian corridors didn't really work well enough for these people to be evacuated. Also, Ukrainian negotiators said that based on today's talks, they believe there was enough material in the current Ukrainian proposals to warrant a meeting between Zelensky and Russia's President Vladimir Putin. As you know, Zelensky has been saying from the very beginning that he is ready to sit down with Putin to negotiate face-to-face. Well, we're now waiting to hear from Moscow, from Vladimir Putin, whether he is ready for that meeting.
So as you say, Sasha, in that holding pattern now, essentially, of waiting at the same time the potential for a reduction of military activity in Kyiv. But as you've also pointed out, that is not the whole story of the whole of the country. You know, thinking, for example, about that significant attack that we saw this morning in Mykolaiv.
Certainly, there was this attack. It happened right before 9 o'clock in the morning, and the building of the regional administration attacked. Now, the timing here is important also because this is the beginning of the day. This is when people just started their workday or were coming to work right before 9 o'clock. And this is documented, and that video is released, and it's verified. And this is what Volodymyr Zelensky had to say about that.
This morning, Russian missiles hit one of our southern cities, Mykolaiv, a shipbuilding city, an absolutely peaceful city, which dreamed of only one thing, to regain its place at the center of shipbuilding in the Black Sea. Following this strike, the regional administration building was destroyed. As far as we know now, 7 people were killed, 22 were wounded, and people are still going through the rubble.
Mykolaiv is 500,000 people population city on the Black Sea coast. It's a huge city which has been resisting so far and defending itself. It's also a crucial city when it comes to the Russian troops' movement from Kherson region, from the south and region of Kherson. Only via Mykolaiv region they hoped and they tried a few times to get to Odessa. That was their way there. So Mykolaiv itself was attacked today, but this is also the road to Odessa. So when it comes to, there is some reduction as they promised to have it around Kyiv and Chernihiv, but we still have the south, we have the east, and of course we have the southeast with Mariupol.
Absolutely important to look at all of those movements across the country, as you say. Sasha, thank you as ever for your analysis. Well, also tracking those talks for us, our Russia correspondent Galina Polanskaya, who joins us now. Galina, we understand that the Russian chief negotiator has said they are ready to consider speeding up those potential for a face-to-face meeting between President Putin and Zelensky, but with the caveat that first a draft peace agreement is needed, and that's not going to be easy, is it?
Exactly, Helen. Actually, Vladimir Medinsky, the chief Russia's negotiator, explained how Russia sees this meeting. He said that it could only happen the same day when the foreign ministers of 2 countries meet to initial the agreement between Russia and Ukraine, meaning that the wording of the agreement should be already confirmed by both sides. And after he said that in that case, the presidents could meet also there to resolve the remaining issues. So the process is not going to be easy now. The proposals of Ukraine are going to be reported to President Putin, and Medinsky today, for example, mentioned the issue of Crimea and Sevastopol. As we know, Ukraine suggests to put it aside. It promises not to try to get it back by military means, but only by political ones, and that the process could last for 15 years. So Medinsky underlined that this is only what Ukraine wants to see, but he said that it is no way representing Russia's position. But on the other hand, for the first time, Russia said that this meeting is an option. Just yesterday we heard from our foreign minister that it would be counterproductive, but at the same time it is clear that now the decisions will be taken in Kyiv and Ukraine, and what we in Kyiv and Moscow, and what we have seen today are the first concrete steps, let's say.
So how have those first concrete steps, how have those latest developments gone down in Russia?
Well, actually, Russia's media and politicians are discussing Russia's announcement, which was mentioned by you and Sasha. Russia promised to drastically reduce its military activity near Ukrainian cities, and it was announced by Russia's deputy defense minister, who was there, and he said that it was done to increase mutual trust, to achieve peace as soon as possible, and that's what some Russian media are saying, state media, of course, but some analysts, pro-Kremlin analysts, say that actually it was something that Russia would have done in any case, that's the strategy. And today, for the first time, Helen, we have heard from Russia's defense minister, Sergei Shoigu. He proclaimed Russia's main goal for the first time, saying, quote, that the goal is the liberation of Donbass, and that's what the politicians are saying. And some papers also speak about the Crimea question. One of them says that Kyiv's proposal to discuss the status of Crimea will obviously not find even the slightest understanding in Moscow.
All right, Galina Polinskaya, good to talk to you. Thanks, Galina. Well, I want to bring in Ina Sovsun now, who is a member of the Ukrainian parliament. She joins me from Kiev. Ina, so good to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time and for being with us this evening. I want to begin just by asking you what the latest is where you are.
Well, while I was waiting to go on air, I was actually hearing some explosions just northwest of the city. So that is the de-escalation for you that you can, that you read on the Russian news, but it's not actually happening. So it's still a very real war around Kiev. We still got about 4 or 5 air raid alerts since the night here in Kiev. That means that the missiles have been set to target Kiev. They have not hit anything here, but it is still happening. It is still here. And that actually coincided about half an hour ago. There was yet another explanation by Mr. Medinsky, who is chairing the Russian delegation. And he says, and I quote, de-escalation in the Kiev and Chernihiv direction does not mean a ceasefire. So that is what we are seeing right now. As we speak, I'm hearing explosions northwest of the city right now.
I wanted to ask you more about that because, talking about that de-escalation that's promised in Kyiv and Chernihiv to boost trust in these talks. What trust do you have that in the coming hours that will come to pass?
Zero, unfortunately. I wish I could say something else, but we have zero reasons for trusting whatever the Russians are saying. We should learn this lesson by now, and the world should learn this lesson by now, is that those people are lying all the time. Like a week before the beginning of the full-scale war, Putin gave an interview saying that he is not planning to invade Ukraine. 2 weeks into the war, Lavrov went to the foreign journalist and said that they'd never attacked Ukraine to begin with. So those are the people who are lying all the time. And so that is why making any deals with them is so very complicated. And that is why Ukrainian population in general is rather pessimistic about the results of those talks, because we have no reason to trust people who have been killing us actively for 1 month. But then also you have to remember that we are at war with Russia since 2014.
I want to say thanks for taking the time to talk to us, especially when you're hearing explosions nearby. And I also want to ask more about your role as a lawmaker, because President Zelensky has said that he's ready to discuss neutrality and staying out of NATO. But he says it would be up to Ukrainians to vote on it. And as a lawmaker, what do you think the people you represent would vote for, and also on the issue of the status of the Donbass region if it came down to it?
Well, first of all, in terms of neutrality, you have to realize that in 2014, when Putin annexed Crimea and started the war in Donbass, which has killed 14,000 people as of January 2022, we were officially a neutral state in 2014. And that gave us no guarantee from Russian aggression against our country. And trust me, people here do remember that very well. So, and that is why right now the support for NATO membership of Ukraine is as high as it has never been before. It is around 80% right now in all regions of Ukraine. Everybody is saying that we need very firm guarantees of our security that will actually make sure that we are not attacked yet again in a month, a year, 8 years from any deal taking place here right now. And that is something that we really, really want to avoid. No, of course, we want the war to stop right now. Trust me, I wish I could bring my son back home today and just forget about the war taking place to an extent that it is possible at all. But I don't want the war to restart in a month or a year or 2 years. And I don't want my son to inherit the war as well. And that is why we have to, to make realistic deals where our security will be guaranteed. And right now, we are not getting those from Russians. We are just getting promises which are not being kept.
Can I ask you, who do you think, which country would provide that security guarantee when NATO membership has already proved to be such a thorny issue?
Well, I still believe that we should continue knocking on the doors of NATO. I think that we have proven to be a very strong army. We have proven to be a democratic state. We don't have a reason why not take us into NATO. So we have to keep on knocking on those doors. I'm sure, absolutely sure about that. But other than that, we need guarantees from the major powers, and the real guarantees, because we were given guarantees in 1994 when we gave up our nuclear weapon by the United States, by the United Kingdom, and by, well, ironically, Russia. We were promised that if we are attacked, those countries will protect us. And we are seeing that that is not happening now. I mean, we are getting some weapon and some, equipment from the UK and the US, but that is not really what we need right now, right? And that is why we need very tough guarantees of our security. And I still believe, and the majority, absolute majority of the Ukrainian population believe that NATO would be the best guarantee for our security. And there is no other mechanism for guarantees of security that exists in this world today.
All right, Ina Sovsen, member of the Ukrainian Parliament, joining me from Kyiv. Thank you so much for talking to us. Do take care.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Elena.
Ukraine's ombudsperson claims that Moscow has forcibly moved 402,000 people, including 84,000 children, to Russia. But the Kremlin denies those claims, instead saying it's relocated the people. So for more, let's go over to Brussels. We can speak to Shona Murray. Shona, good to see you. We've been talking, I guess, for weeks about people fleeing Ukraine, heading into EU member states. But these are reports about a significant number of people heading into Russia under worrying circumstances. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. We saw at the start of the war in February evidence of people being forcibly displaced to Russia. That's what the reports were. And I caught up with the Ukrainian ombudsman today here in Brussels, who's here to discuss the various evidence of war crimes taking place in Ukraine. And she told me that the figure of people being forcibly displaced to Russia from Ukraine is over 400,000. And she told me about a specific family.
On March 9th, the Russian occupying forces came to their home and took them away, put them on the bus, where there were also other people that were gathered on those filtration camps in the temporarily occupied Donetsk region. From other cities as well, and there, via those buses, they were transferred to the territory of the city of Taganrog back in Russia, where they were staying from 9 to 15th March. They were staying in a kindergarten, they were lying on the floor, including those families, this granny and other people. And on March 15, they were put into a railway station, put on a train and brought to the territory of the city of Suzdal in the Volodymyr region. And since March 20th, we have no more contact and no more signals from those relatives and this family.
The Ukrainian ombudsman Lyudmila Denisova speaking to me here in Brussels today, discussing what she says is the over 400,000 people being forcibly displaced to Russia from eastern Ukraine. Helena?
And of course, Shona, more broadly, the role of the ombudsperson is to track cases of human rights abuses, is to collect evidence. Was she able to speak more broadly to what they've been able to collect so far?
Yes, she talked about, well, obviously the forcible displacement of civilians in occupied territory is a grave breach of the Geneva Convention, so that's a war crime. She also discussed the situation in Mariupol, the intensive shelling, the targeting of civilians, civilian objects, the targeting of children. She also accused the Russian army of stealing the uniforms of Ukrainian soldiers and essentially pretending or masquerading as Ukrainian soldiers. So she said there is a long list of war crimes that Russia has committed, and they intend to use this for eventually a sort of war crimes tribunal and a case at the International Court of Justice. Helena?
All right, Shona, thanks for bringing that story to our attention. Shona Murray there. Well, British police have issued fines to 20 people who attended gatherings at Downing Street that broke COVID lockdown rules. It's part of an investigation into 12 events that happened during lockdown, 3 of which the Prime Minister attended. The identities of those fined isn't known. A spokesman for Boris Johnson says he's not among the group, but reiterated that if the Prime Minister is fined, it will be made public. Now, the Partygate scandal, as it's known, caused huge anger among the public and within Parliament, with calls for Johnson to resign. Ukraine and Russia have launched investigations into a graphic video allegedly showing Ukrainian forces mistreating Russian prisoners of war. And here's Matthew in the Cube with more.
Well, Helena, throughout the war, we've seen multiple examples of misinformation and propaganda from both Russia and Ukraine, as well as allegations of war crimes that the International Criminal Court are investigating. Over the weekend, a number of graphic videos appeared on social media. We won't be showing you those. However, they claim to show Ukrainian soldiers torturing Russian prisoners of war by shooting them in the leg after they had been captured. The clips were shared widely on various platforms, including by a number of pro-Russian accounts. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the images were monstrous. However, the validity and the content of this video still needs to be verified. But here are a number of things that we do know. Independent fact-checkers have found that the videos were filmed to the southeast of the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, an area that we know was recently recaptured by Ukrainian forces. And what's more, the presidential advisor to President Volodymyr Zelensky has issued a reminder to Ukrainian defense forces in an Instagram video saying that Ukraine treats prisoners of war under the Geneva Convention regardless of any personal, emotional motivations. An investigation into the video has been launched. Now, on the other hand, you have the Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's armed forces who has dismissed those videos. He has instead claimed that Russia has been filming propaganda videos to try and discredit Ukrainian forces and their attitude to prisoners of war. And since then, another viral image has appeared online. This letter claims to show Russia authorizing the filming of these kind of propaganda videos. However, there are doubts about the validity of this claim. It is reported to have been signed by Dmitry Bulgakov, a deputy to the Russian defense minister. However, if you compare this signature on this image to another of Bulgakov's, reportedly from 2020, you can see there are differences between the two. And what's more, fact-checkers say that this signature on this reported letter has instead appeared elsewhere on the internet in an unrelated Russian personality quiz. So therefore, there are doubts about the validity of this letter, which claims that Russia has authorized the filming of propaganda videos. However, Helen, one thing is clear, and that is that both Russia and Ukraine have launched an investigation into those allegations of war crimes and that very graphic video that appeared over the weekend.
All right, Matthew, doing the forensic work of fact-checking there. Thank you so much. You're up to date. Bye for now.